Good afternoon from Los Angeles. It's Alissa, Coram, and Ken Shreve here with a look at the stock market today, right at the closing bell. On today's show, we're following up on Chipotle after its post-earnings session. We're going to see where it closed and give you some analysis there. Also taking a look at Spirit Airlines as well as CyberArk. But first, let's take a look at the major indexes. The NASDAQ finishing down about 1.3%. The S&P 500 finished down 1%. The Dow finishing down almost 1%. Concerns over a trade deal with China impacting the overall tone here for the majority of the day.
Yeah, so President Trump was hoping to have a meeting with China's president on March 1st. It looks like that might be a little bit in question. The sell-off kind of accelerated after that news came out. But, you know, stocks were weak early when the European Commission, we talked about this morning, they lowered their growth forecast for the Eurozone. So that just kind of, you know, fueled concerns about slowing growth in the Eurozone. So all in all, not a great day for the market, but we've been kind of spoiled in recent weeks after that follow-through day. Really strong uptrend. Really not a whole lot of technical damage done today. Volume looks like it's going to be higher, so we'll get probably a distribution day for the NASDAQ and S&P 500, but still pretty light distribution in the market too.
That's right. So the uptrend still very much intact here. And as far as figuring out if that's changing, we would be then seeing a piling up of these distribution days happening more frequently. Big losses coming in heavier volume. Yeah,
just looking at declines in the indexes from here, if they're in light volume, lower volume, it's really not a big deal. But if they're coming in expanding volume, like we did see today, I mean, there was some juice behind the selling today. But even after today, we're looking at one distribution day on the NASDAQ since January 4th and two on the S&P 500. So pretty minor. Growth stocks still looking pretty good. So, you know, no reason to be overly concerned at this point.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on those market conditions. And we also want to talk about Chipotle. Those shares finishing the day up over 11%, coming off of the intraday high just above 600 though. But what are your thoughts on how Chipotle was able to close the session here? It showed a lot of strength in the early going, and even after that initial selling was the worst selling was fueled by the China news. It was holding up, but it has pulled back from the intraday high and closed about the middle of the range.
Right, not a great close for Chipotle, but still a really strong percentage gain. You can see on the chart here it closed pretty much in the middle of its intraday range, maybe even a little bit below after crossing the 600 level. So a disappointing close, but still a really strong earnings report. We talked about the numbers earlier today. New CEO Brian Niccol really has that company in growth mode. And so would have liked to have seen a close above 600 or at least a close near session highs. Didn't get that, but we'll see if we can get some follow through tomorrow.
That's right. I think that's definitely what we'll want to see from Chipotle. We'll be keeping our eyes on that. And also Spirit Airlines up today, almost 3% after a not so great session yesterday after its quarterly report. It did find some support at the 50-day line, but this is one that, you know, we were hoping to see some good action out of with it trading in buy range heading into the report. We didn't get that, but it's looking like it's recovering some.
Yeah, I mean, there's a cup with handle base here, 62.07 entry point for Spirit. Kind of a wild day for the stock yesterday. It came down to its 50-day moving average. You can see that big, long red bar there. Did find support at the 50-day, and then Goldman Sachs came out today and upgraded shares to buy, raised their price target to 85 from 78, I believe. So good day of outperformance for Spirit. Probably the best airline stock in the group in terms of its technical health, and fundamentals pretty good too. The earnings report yesterday, the earnings were only in line, but a 30% rise in sales for an airline stock. That's pretty impressive. So you know, Spirit looks like it's getting healthy again.
That's right. Definitely one to keep on the radar. And checking in with CyberArk Software, those shares finishing down a little over 1%, but well off of the intraday low here, finding support around that buy point a little bit here.
Yeah.
So what do you make of the action today for CyberArk?
Well, it's a good example of how a stock can actually close lower, but it's actually a pretty constructive session, because you can see the stock went below $85 a share, but it closed all the way up near its session high today. So a lot of security software stocks in the news today. A very bad day for FireEye in the group, and there was another one. Fortinet was also lower. So CyberArk reports earnings next week. You have a conventional entry here that's highlighted on this Market Smith chart at 84.31. It did break out over a handle area, a little earlier buy point, 81.98. So this is a stock that's hanging in there pretty good ahead of earnings, and we'll take a look at this one for an option trade. Yeah, option trade next week. So could see good numbers again from CyberArk.
So we'll have the column from you coming out. So that's a great resource for people to, looking at the week ahead. We have the investing action plan, and then also to get the perspective about stocks that are looking potentially actionable around earnings.
There's a lot of good setups next week. Just finished up kind of in the tail end of finishing up the column, but we're talking about CyberArk. We're talking about Restaurant Brands, which had a big gap up last month, holding gains nicely. So a whole bunch of Shopify is another one that we're going to look at. So that'll publish tomorrow at investors.com, and then it'll be in IBD Weekly over the weekend.
All right, well, make sure to check that out. And also coming up tomorrow, we of course will be back here bright and early, at least on the West Coast. It's early, but tomorrow afternoon for our closing day show, Ed Carson and I are going to be doing a Q&A. So make sure you submit your questions to us so we can get some thoughts going. The Q&A that you and I did, I think, went really well. Yeah. So it's nice to get some of that real-time feedback and communication with our audience.
Absolutely, a lot of questions out there, and we're here to answer.
That's right, even beyond the Q&A. We're always happy to answer your questions. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Be sure to head to investors.com for all the latest market news and analysis. We have our big picture coming out for that additional end-of-day perspective for you. And once again, we will see you right back here for Market Update on Friday. He followed your lead. You didn't have a tie. After